space every day, but I do want to remind, especially folks who may be newer, and when I say that, even some of our members of the media, you know, we made a big push for something called safe outdoor spaces. And some people call these sanctioned encampments. There's different names. It doesn't really matter what the name is. And it was several years ago, and everyone said it was a good idea in the end. But then people got worried about all the details, like how the bathrooms work and how security works and all of this stuff. And what happened is we ended up saying, as a city, meaning city council passed a safe outdoor ordinance to allow sanctioned encampments. Unfortunately, the regulations are so strict and harsh, they basically made it so that no one wants to do it or can do it. And that's what we're going to hear from them, their story on that. But just by way of background, we're working with Councilor Nicole Rogers to revisit that and just make some tweaks that make this so much more doable for the host entity, typically a church or a nonprofit. And so that's what we're doing this fall. And so we can obviously talk about broader, you know, housing and homelessness issues if we can, but I just want, or if you want to, but I just want to let you know like why we're here, and we know it can work. That's the other thing. But we've got to make this easier on folks to do. So before I go into the kind of questions and details, I also want to share a broader concept. In the era a few years ago when we tried safe outdoor spaces, people in their minds thought of Coronado Park. I don't know if you remember this dynamic. I don't know if you were here even during that time.
No.
Okay. Basically, cities all across America had these giant encampments. And some were sort of sanctioned and some were not. We had Coronado Park, hundreds of people living there. And unfortunately, we tried to regulate it sort of for several years. In the end, though, it just became too dangerous. There were drugs everywhere. I think 2 people died. There was a couple of folks who went to jail for felonies. And we had to end that whole experiment. We were testing it out, and it just was unsafe. And so this was happening at the same time, and so people had this vision in their heads of like, we don't want a Coronado Park. I don't want a Coronado Park. I ended Coronado Park, and as long as I'm mayor, we're not going to have Coronado Park. So I just want to be really clear, because I know at least one of you is going to ask me that question. Okay, so what we want and what we've seen in other cities, Phoenix, Denver, San Diego, that's just me personally, we see smaller versions. And the key is, there may not be a magic number, but let's say 20 tents or less, even 10 or less, but then there's many more. And the reason is because you can kind of guarantee the safety and the hygiene when it's a small amount of people. And also for a host, they can kind of digest that with their own volunteer corps, and they can manage that. And so that's what we need in our city. We need dozens and dozens of safe outdoor spaces just like the one right here. That is our policy goal. We have to sort of change city council, and then we got to find some partners. So I think that's all for background. So with that background, why don't you take us away, tell us about yourself and your experience trying to set this up.
Okay, yeah. Well, we started when we saw an increase in people on the street, especially around 2020 and then on and on. And so we wanted to create a space that's safe, secure, sanitary, where we could build community and welcome our neighbors across the street. So yeah, it's been a beautiful experience so far, where we've served a total of 10 people, and we've got several people on the waiting list that get calls every day, people trying to get in and have a place of safety. And so we've really seen a lot of community being built, a lot of connection through community support workers, IDs, birth certificates, glasses, healthcare that has been severely needed, connection to vital resources, mental health counseling. So we're really seeing it work beautifully so far. So it's been good.
So maybe before we move on to some personal experience, tell us about how hard this was to set up.
Yeah.
And all the hoops you had to jump through.
For sure. Yeah, we tried to do it on our own for a little bit, thinking ignorance was bliss, right? And we're like, hey, well, let's just do it ourselves. not knowing that there was, laws and ordinances and things like that. And so we did that, but then we had to kind of go through the hoops, and it was a really long, painful process, a lot of paperwork, a lot of kind of site plans and ordinances, and trying to figure out all of that. It took months and months to work out. And so we were finally able to get it up and running, but it was definitely a chore and a learning curve for us. Yeah.
Well, do you want to share your experience, how you found this place and how it's worked out?
We fell victims of circumstance, and then we were in a financial bind and ended up not having enough money to stay in the hotels anymore. And then we found Jesse, and he applied, and we were able to get in, and it's been a blessing. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that there's places like this that can help people, and make the transition in a safe environment.
Good. And we know too, right? We have the gateway system, which has a mix of different specialty shelter beds. We have recovery container housing. That's the recovery gateway. But we also know a lot of people, they just want to do things on their own, but be safe and not have the exorbitant cost of living in a hotel. And so I guess just tell us maybe a little bit, why did you want to stay, you choose to stay in a tent at least?
Well, for now, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been traveling, and so we were camping out in a sense, but we weren't homeless, but then we fell into a homeless circumstance, and this is like it'll be a smooth transition for us, So I think, I see other people out there kind of out in tents already, so it would be a good transitioning system for them, no matter, I believe no matter where they're at, they can get the help here. Yeah.
That's great. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's, we need as many solutions as there are people, right? And not everyone is going to go into a shelter. Not everyone obviously has family or friends to grab a couch on. So I think, it's just a beautiful transition piece where we found a lot of security. People have a lot of security just being able to leave their stuff and then go about what they're doing, people are resilient, they're resourceful, they're wanting to move forward, and just having that burden lifted of okay, my stuff is safe, I'm safe, I can move forward and get what I need done, accomplished. So,
All right.
very good.
So hearing your experience, both your experiences, but in particular on kind of managing these, I do want to touch on what the law change would do. And it's not a big deal, but and you can just kind of share your reaction or see what you think. But there's three things that primarily we want to do to make it easier for Albuquerque to have more of these. And one is this notion of security. Currently, the law requires 24/7 security. And when you think of smaller encampments, a lot of the feedback we've gotten is that you need security when you need it at certain times, and you can decide that, but 24/7 security can be pretty expensive. And ironically, if you happen to have, even whether it's your own home or a system of volunteers, you just may not need that, and it's a high burden of cost. There's insurance issues related with that. So we want to make that security more relaxed so that appropriate security is available and is kind of worked out on an individual basis for what works for the residents. So that's one change. The second change is we want to make sure they're safe and clean. So we want access to bathrooms. We want access to showers. The current law makes you basically have a shower 24/7 on the site. And, if you only have 10 people at a site, the showers aren't going 24/7.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways to problem solve around that. You can have a temporary trailer that comes on different days of the week. It goes to multiple shelters or safe outdoor spaces. But again, the current law, that's what it says you have to have. And so these are a couple of things that we're trying to change. And I think there's a third one too, which is about service space. So the current law makes you have a dedicated space for a service provider. But think about it, if you're living outside, you can typically find a shelter area other than a day like today where you can have those consultations and provide services. You don't necessarily need dedicated space that's then empty the rest of the time. So those are the three things we're trying to relax. And they also are related in some ways to the insurance regulation, because then the insurance isn't as big of a deal. So anyway, just curious, kind of, wanted to get your thoughts, and hopefully that'll help some more folks jump on board.
For sure, yeah. I think the 24/7 security is probably the most significant obstacle to getting things started. It's our highest expense. If you pay someone minimum wage to be there 24/7, it's over $100,000 a year. So that right there eliminates 99% of people who try to do it.
Yeah.
And so we've tried to do creative ways to cover that cost, but it's a huge barrier. And I think it starts with an understanding of a posture of fear towards the people that are staying, right? So like, these are our neighbors that we're welcoming in, and I think a lot of these ordinances were possibly created in the context of resistance, right? Neighborhoods that didn't want them, and so, well, we need this, this, and this to protect ourselves. But really, man, it's a beautiful community. There's a code of conduct. People care for one another. They protect one another, and so I think it's an unnecessary thing, especially for a smaller site for 10 people. Yeah, so I think that would be huge. It would be huge for us and huge for other spaces.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we can do is open it up to questions, and obviously they can just choose not to answer. I want you to give them that space, but they're willing to try. So
Do you have to answer?
I kind of do.
Okay.
They won't let me not answer, but don't. I got you.
Okay.
So, so feel free to just make. I'd prefer not to answer. That's okay. Yeah.
Hello. Hi, I'm Cassie. Could you just tell me again your first and last name and your position, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jesse Harden, JESSEHARDEN, and I'm the pastor of New Creation Albuquerque Church, and on paper the operator of the Refuge Safe Outdoor Space.
Great. How many people are utilizing your safe outdoor space? Is it open 24/7, and how long have you been operating that?
Yeah, we opened in April, like April 3rd, I believe, and we have capacity for 8 tent sites, up to 10 people. For a couple, they could share a tent. That's where the 10 people comes from. And so right now we have 7 people. That number kind of shifts back and forth. And so we are currently moving. There's several people on the waiting list that are being interviewed, going through the process to take those empty spaces right now. So right now there's 7 people total. I think there's been 11 people that have gone through the site since we opened in April.
Thank you.
Do you have any advice for anybody that's looking to start one of these safe outdoor spaces? And the second part of that, I guess, would be, has there been any lessons now that you've been operating for a few months, anything that's come up that was either a surprise or something that you had to adapt to?
Yeah, I think my answer would be related to both questions. I think a posture, again, we've learned, my faith in people and our neighbors experiencing homelessness and life on the street has only grown as we have started this and lived into it. So I think to begin a safe space, we need the posture that these are our neighbors, fellow human beings in need of safety and security on their way home, just like we do. And I think that changes the dynamic, just the culture that you create and that begins to be created. So I think a posture of just like, yeah, this is my neighbor, a human, a person, not a problem, and let's co-create some community here. And so, yeah, I think the biggest challenges have been from the more burdensome ordinances. Trying to man the 24/7, trying to figure that out. Oh, someone's got to be on site, so we got to, this person got sick, so we got to cover it, That's been the biggest headache. But on the whole, we're discovering that people are creating a beautiful community. There's Michael's and his partner have created flower beds, and they're wanting to beautify the space, create shade. So yeah, it's been a pleasant surprise.
I would just echo on that. I think there's always an attitude of, well, it's a good idea. I don't know about my neighborhood. We all get that. Like, that's human nature. And there's also, I think, this instant stereotyping of, that things can be dangerous. And I get that too, because of what we see, you know, all over every city in America. But I think there's also the challenges. The city has sort of said these are okay, but we've overregulated it such that it doesn't even work. And that's the frustration with government. That's where, you know, I've always said that if government works, if you disagree with it, like, that's still better than it not working. And I think this is a really good example where these rules are in our own way. And we owe it to folks, like, the government should make life easier for people, both on the street and people who want to help people on the street, not make it harder. And that's what we have with our current safe outdoor space law.
Yeah. And I think our space, one thing that I think is beautiful, is I think we're demonstrating that this is not only a pleasant place to live, it's not a Coronado Park, right? It can be a pleasant place. If you go next door, it's beautiful, it's nice. But it's also a pleasant place to live next to. And I think it's something that neighborhoods don't have to fear. And that's what I wanted to do. I live 4 blocks down the road. I wanted to create a space that I wanted to live next to, that I want my kids to live next to. And so we need to cultivate this kind of community in neighborhoods.
Yeah. And key to that is the size. So I know we mentioned it.
Right.
I think everyone has, you know, an understandable reaction to anything large of just challenges right next to them. You know, 10 tents, it's a different game. And I think that's something that is processable and understandable and part of a community, no matter what that community is.
Does somebody who wants to operate a safe outdoor space have to apply through the city? And then for this to really make a difference in our homeless population, how many safe outdoor spaces do you think our city would need to operate to really see a difference?
So first, I just want to emphasize that if you take the story that we've heard here, or the 10 here, the proportional difference that makes in those 10 people's lives is huge. And so that's never lost on me. Mm-hmm. It's always worth it to help 10 people. Now, your point is obvious in that if you're not having one giant encampment, then how do you sort of make this make a difference? And the answer is we do need real scale. So I use the term dozens. That would be the answer to your question. Like, we definitely need more than 12. So I'm going with at least 2 dozen, you know. And if you just do the math, you know, if you do it like, say, times 20 or even times 10, all of a sudden you are taking big chunks of our population and they're not living literally on the street. So if you look at it this way, anytime you can get 100 people help off the street and into a more productive, safe shelter, 100 people is totally worth it for all our social services, all our neighborhoods, everything that we're dealing with. Now, you know, but our goal would be, you know, we think there's at least 1,000 people on the street who would say yes to a safe outdoor space and who currently say no to the gateway system and either are not ready for housing because of different situations in their lives, or there's housing not available. So the opportunity is to get 1,000 people off the street. That's what we think, and into safe outdoor spaces. Now, you know, if you do that math, I think that'd be like 100 safe outdoor spaces, right? That's a lot, but if some of them are 15 or 20, you know, these numbers are big if you do it in increments of like a dozen. And so, yes, we think this will make a tremendous difference on our streets. Again, because typically people who say yes to this type of living situation are saying no to the shelter program that we have. So anyway, I think that answered your question.
I do have another question. Oh, go ahead.
For Michael, I was wondering, from your perspective, what's it like living in this community? Like, have you gotten to know the people that live with you, and are you guys close? Do you hang out? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, we barbecue and stuff all the time. As a matter of fact, I was in barbecue before it started raining. And so we get along great. We all go out and get food for each other and stuff like that. Whatever's needed. It's a pretty tight community, and we help each other out. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you feel safe here?
Yeah, actually I do. Yeah. And it's actually been a fun experience in a way. Yeah, we've turned it into a positive thing. You know? Yeah.
For people who don't want to participate in a safe outdoor space or go to the Gateway Center or other resources that the city has offered, what is the city's policy on enforcing things like illegal camping or trespassing, things like that?
So the city has a layered approach, and we currently address about 200 encampments a week. So we are very busy. We have teams in each corridor, and we try and balance civil rights and the law, because it is not illegal to just be in a park or be standing on a sidewalk. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but like that's like literally in the Bill of Rights. So just to remind folks, there's that. What is illegal is the defecation, is blocking a thoroughfare, blocking a sidewalk, blocking a public entrance, and also under city rules, anywhere near children, playgrounds, and schools. So what the city does is first we provide notice, and then we make sure and offer at least twice services and transport and storage of belongings. We do that, not everyone takes us up on it, but we have a whole warehouse filled with people's belongings that we save for them. And then if they're in those areas that are not allowed, we tell them they have to leave. And if they happen to be near a school, we are, I think, appropriately allowed to say, like, you need to move on right now. And so we do that all over the city 200 times a week.
For people who are doing things that are illegal, is it a citation?
So it depends on what they're doing. I do want to emphasize, if people are doing narcotics, we do arrest people. We do cite them for narcotics usage, and we cite them and we arrest them for narcotics trafficking. Now, there are rules that APD can walk you through about the amount of substance on you and what the punishment or the crime is, right? So in Albuquerque, because of the McClendon settlement, low-level narcotics possession is not a arrestable offense. You can only cite. So we absolutely cite. And if you get cited 3 times, then there's a bench warrant. And so the city goes through that process, and it is, it is not very fast, but we do what the law allows us to do, and we do enforce those laws. And conversely, if somebody is, a down and out at a bus stop, no, we do not arrest them, and no, we don't take them to jail. We try and get them into a shelter.
Any other questions?
I might have one, but it's kind of a weird question. So we were talking about insurance. What are the insurance liabilities for an open space like this? Is that done privately through the charity? Is that done with the support of the city?
We have to carry insurance. We're not, and actually we had a whole thing, we had to separate a little bit the property from the church because the insurance company was going to drop the church's insurance. So it's a little bit of a complicated process, but we do carry liability on the property.
Mm-hmm. And what we found, luckily, because you kind of helped us figure this out, there are some providers that are easy to work with for insuring these spaces that are not super high cost. We didn't know about a lot of them because no one had the guts and the courage to try this and actually see it through under the current rules. So we think insurance is a much lower threshold than it was just 6 months ago. And the last thing is the insurance burden changes a little bit with respect to the permanent space for service providers and showers and bathrooms. And so that's helped mitigate the insurance annoyance factor and cost for everyone.
Is there a manager, or do you manage it, or there's a manager that manages the?
So we have a team, 24/7 on-site management, right? So that's that security piece. That 2 of the managers live on property in the house, and one of them is the lead, the guy that manages all of that.
Just on this too, what we want churches or just nonprofits to know is you can do it your own way. Meaning, a lot of churches I'll talk to and they'll say, look, we have a lot of volunteers. We actually, as a faith community, have a fair amount of funding. And so, but we don't have space, for example. So this is where we're trying to pair them with people who have space and don't have some financial support and don't have as many volunteers. So this is why we do really want to get the word out. Even if you don't have all the pieces, we will help find the other pieces for you. The city might even provide space, but we need your volunteers. So the shift work is really important. A lot of people are like, oh, I'll come hang out at the shelter, maybe work with food or drive people around for 2 hours once a week. Well, if that's true, then you need like 50 volunteers, right? But a lot of churches can do that. And then, conversely, again, some don't have space, but they don't have the volunteers. So we can really put this together. But we want to have folks sort of giving it a shot. And that's part of both reducing the regulations, but also reminding everyone, like, this is possible. It's not the hugest deal in the world. And it's a great thing to do for the people who are part of it.
If a nonprofit is interested, do they talk to the Department of Health, Housing, and Homelessness? Like, who do they call at the city for direction?
So the first step is the planning department, because the current law, the council law, has a process. So you got to fill out some paperwork and some forms. But we will concierge you, we'll walk you through that. So the Housing and Human Services, or I don't know why I call it, you called it that. Yeah, Triple H, that's what I know. So Triple H will help you with the planning department. And Maria is here, actually. That's really what she does all the time, Maria Wolf. So she'll help you with that process. And the planning department knows, too. They have their own guidelines of what you need and what you don't need. And so they'll eventually help you with like site plans and things like that. But the first step is to engage with either one of those departments. Well, thanks, everybody. If it dries up, if you don't have B-roll, you should definitely check out the site.
Yeah.
And Connor?
Hopefully
Yeah.
it's sprinkling
The
a
rain
little
just
bit,
stopped.
but hopefully it'll stop in a few minutes to get some B-roll.